We've been in the business of providing security in the cloud for a while now, for around about 5 or 6 years, which might come as something of a surprise to you. But our main contention around cloud, around public cloud, around private cloud, is that you must protect your data in those environments with the same, if not greater, rigor than you previously protected your data within the private data center environment. If that means deploying appliances, firewalls, if that means deploying solutions that can protect you from the sort of attack vectors that we're seeing emerging right now, then so be it. Now, as was previously alluded to by the Colonel, the pace of change around these subjects has been so rapid that it's changing virtually every week. We're seeing new attacks come to light. We're seeing new methods of attacking cloud deployments. And I'm referring to both cloud, public, private, hybrid, any combination of those things. So it's very clear that we need to address this, and we need to address it very quickly. We have this dichotomy between the traditional data center and the cloud. As you all know, those of you who use the cloud understand that it's an incredibly dynamic environment. It's changing constantly. Virtual machines being spun up, resources being used, virtual machines being spun down, all of those good things. And yes, it's very effective. It can be very, very effective in ensuring business agility. It can be very effective at ensuring cost control and all of those good things. But there is a downside. And the downside to that is that it's a complex environment, possibly not managed by specialist teams. And in certain cases, across multiple cloud environments, a different scenario in each case in terms of protecting the data you have in the cloud and the likelihood that someone within the organization is going to make a mistake and misconfigure a cloud environment, which will lead to, inevitably, some kind of security vulnerability. So how do we address this kind of difficulty, dilemma, if you like, between the traditional way of doing things and the way that we look to do things in the cloud, as I said, to stick to that principle of protecting your data in cloud environments with equal rigor? There are a number of challenges in this space. First of all, from the infrastructure perspective, we have the shared responsibility model, and we'll talk about a little bit more about that in a second. We have minimal visibility in the cloud of what's happening with the infrastructure on which our data is held. We have ever-changing workloads. Different parts of our company may be spinning up different workloads, requirements for different capacity at different times. And we can frequently see organizations doing that across multiple cloud environments, Azure, AWS, Google, whatever. And then the internal risk of misconfiguration, somebody making a mistake somewhere which is going to leave you open to threat. There's the insider threat to deal with in terms of an individual within the company who might want to do you harm. And then finally, compliance and regulation. How do you remain compliant from a data security perspective when you are hosting that data in the cloud? How do you do that? And finally, from an external threat perspective, we're still seeing all those malware, zero-day attacks, account takeover attempts, all that stuff that we traditionally try to address with hardware, software combinations, appliances of some description, happening in the cloud. That hasn't gone away. Just because you have chosen to host your data in a cloud environment does not mean you're not still absolutely open to those sort of attacks. And from a cloud provider perspective, it's incredible the number of organizations that I talk to who do not understand that there is a shared responsibility model here in place. The provider, be it Azure, be it Google Cloud, be it AWS, whoever, will take responsibility for maintaining the hardware, any software-defined network that's in place, the networking piece, and the internet connection around their platform. What they specifically will not take responsibility for is your data, your applications, your application access, the compliance within that deployment. They will not take responsibility for that. It's in the contract. So any organization looking to use those platforms has to have some kind of solution in place which prevents the attacks that we saw earlier. And from a multi-cloud perspective, that makes it even more difficult. If you're looking to leverage AWS or Azure or Google Cloud simultaneously, then you've got a management issue. Because if you rely on the native security controls that those platforms provide you, it limits your ability to manage a consistent security schema right across your cloud. Secondarily, trying to maintain a consistent security posture and governance policies are not consistent because the tools don't work in the same way across different cloud providers. It's a complex model. It's difficult to understand and prevent attacks when you can't see right across your cloud infrastructure. And finally, cloud environments predicated on different platforms can't simultaneously change and apply your consistent security posture simultaneously. Very, very difficult to do that without an appropriate solution. So, our advice to you would be the following. First of all, protect all the assets that you have in the cloud. So protect your virtual machines, containers, the serverless function that you have, platform as a service, applications, and the network piece, all of those good things. Make sure that every element within that cloud deployment is protected one way or another. Apply all the traditional security disciplines that you might think of, so harden everything in terms of access, compliance, threats that you might see, and data loss prevention. But make sure that you don't defeat the object of moving to cloud in the first place. Because, let's face it, one of the main reasons that you might want to spin that capacity up in very short order is to be agile. Because you may have a series of DevOps people who say, I want resource, I want it now, but it absolutely has to be secure. So make sure that the security policies you are applying do not constrict the ability of the cloud to be agile. Fourthly, secure all your clouds. It's pointless securing one cloud when you are also involved in another and have not taken into account the security in that field. And finally, yes, apply a solution which will enable management across all these different cloud platforms, but leverage the native controls. They're there for a reason. So logs, remediation, orchestration, all those things which the platform providers will give you, leverage those in a conjunction with a solution that will manage everything. So rethink the way you look at this. Change the way you're implementing security in the cloud. Make it flexible and give security that enables the business rather than holds it back. But all of that is immaterial unless the security that you apply is up to date, is current, and deals with the advanced threats that we're seeing coming from all directions right at this moment. Now, Checkpoint's view on this is having visibility and being able to see into the cloud deployment that you have and being able to manage it correctly is key. So we have a suite of products. Again, I've tried to make this less product-centric, but these are our ways, if you like, of addressing the issues that I've just covered. So in terms of SaaS, software as a service, we have a solution in that space. We have a solution in infrastructure as a service. And what I mean by that is being able to deploy a software-based virtual firewall, gateway, whatever you want to call it, within your cloud deployment, between virtual machines or between a virtual machine and perimeter, allowing that virtual gateway to scan all data, everything, moving within your cloud environment and prevent east-west proliferation of malware, attacks, anything that you might come across. So vital in being able to monitor exactly what's happening and preventing the proliferation of the bad stuff within your environment. And then under our controller piece, we can control all of those virtual gateways and existing hardware as it happens from a Checkpoint perspective for all the major cloud providers. So what that provides you with is the ability to place virtual gateways within the environment for Azure, AWS, whatever cloud you're using, and be able to monitor it from one central console, which is extraordinary capability from a management perspective when you compare it to the native tools that those platforms provide. And finally, I'm very excited about a new technology that we brought to market. This is a company called Dome9 that we acquired about a year ago. And Dome9 is a public cloud solution protecting against the sort of attacks that I've identified already, but providing you with a way of remaining compliant to specific data regulation. It has 4 pillars. It has network security, it has compliance, as I said, it has a privileged identity protection module, and it has a level of intelligence. Now, this is obviously key. As you probably know, Check Point have been in this business a long time, about 26 years, and we have compiled an enormous database of intelligence based on threats we have seen, threats we are still seeing, and being able to analyze what bad looks like when it starts to happen within your environment. In that way, we can then prevent things happening and alert you rather than them happening and then alerting you later. So in the case of Dome9, for instance, it can provide you with complete network and security visibility. It can give you a graphic view of what your cloud deployment looks like. You can change the security attributes within this tool, and it will give you suggestions or automatically implement changes to protect you against security vulnerabilities caused by network inconsistency. So automatic discovery and classification of security groups, visualization of topology, object-based management, etc. All of those things giving you a level of visibility into your cloud that you simply wouldn't have with the native tools. By the way, this tool is specifically for public cloud. It's software as a service, so there's no agents or anything else to deploy, and provides you with click-through remediation. Similarly, if you want to measure how effectively you are compliant with a particular standard, then this tool will enable you to drive compliance within your organization by measuring each cloud deployment against a specific standard. In this instance, you'll see AWS CIS Foundations, a very straightforward AWS security standard which most corporate AWS users would seek to be adherent to. What this is showing is, in this instance, this particular deployment in Southeast Asia on AWS has failed rather dramatically, as you can see. 88% failed. But the key is that at the bottom, it provides you with a list of prioritized suggestions as to how to amend your cloud deployment in order to become more compliant with AWS CIS Foundations. So thousands of security checks, all of these different standards built into the tool. You must have these things. You must have this visibility and the ability to monitor and analyze how compliant you are if you are moving forward with this. So driving a compliance loop, continuous compliance, continuous monitoring of your particular situation. So if the auditors come knocking tomorrow and say, how compliant are you with GDPR? How compliant are you with ISO 27001? You can show them in an instant, yes, we are, and here's why, and here's how compliant we are, and here's where we've been, and here's where we're going to. You can write your own, in this instance, you can write your own security rules. If you have governance requirements within your organization which you need to write, then there is a language within the tool. This is the sort of tool we would expect to see enterprises using moving forward to properly protect their clouds. And then another module within this is identity access management, the ability to time bomb credentials for whoever's accessing your cloud. What level do they access it at, and for how long? Crucial if you're going to avoid hijacking of credentials, for instance, and unauthorized access to your cloud. So, in summary, if you're going to extensively use the cloud, or you are born in the cloud business, you must focus on protecting your data with a similar or enhanced rigor in terms of the way you protect it within the environment. So look at SaaS, look at IaaS, infrastructure as a service. How do I protect my cloud at the network level? How do I get visibility into how my networking is configured? How do I fix inconsistencies? How do I prevent myself from being vulnerable? From a Check Point perspective, we can provide you with the most advanced threat prevention for cloud workloads, using everything that we've developed over the last 26 years, all that experience, extensive visibility for ever-changing cloud assets, everything spinning up, spinning down. How do you keep track of it? Real-time compliance checks to prevent misconfigurations, so the fat-fingered who will make a mistake and cause you to be vulnerable. And then adaptive security policy for ever-changing workloads. It's not going to work unless it adapts, folks. You cannot apply a traditional static security model onto the cloud and expect it to work. Won't happen. And finally, from a cloud support perspective, multi-cloud support and management from a single pane of glass, irrespective of whether it's Checkpoint or not. You need to look for these attributes within whichever solution you choose to deploy. That's me. Thank you very much indeed.